feature in the magazine and on the podcast every month a lot of amazing leaders, the top people in their fields who have studied or lived the lessons that they teach. And my interview guest today is the latter. Jocko Willink was our April cover figure, the April issue of Success. There it is. It's okay. Don't be afraid. He's cool. He's cool. Jocko has taken his experience as a Navy SEAL officer and brought it to the world at large. He spent 20 years as part of U.S. Navy SEAL teams. He was commander of SEAL Team 3's Task Unit Bruiser during the Battle of Ramadi. He orchestrated SEAL operations that helped the Ready First Brigade of the U.S. Army's 1st Armored Division bring stability to the city of Ramadi. Jocko returned from Iraq to serve as officer in charge of training for all West Coast SEAL teams. And there he spearheaded the development and leadership training, personally instructing and mentoring the next generation of SEAL leaders that have continued to perform with great success and bravery on the battlefield. He now has translated his leadership lessons into his company, Echelon Front, where he's a leadership instructor, speaker, and executive coach. He is also the author of the mega bestseller, Extreme Ownership, How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win, and he hosts the very popular Jocko podcast. It is one of the most listened to, fastest growing podcasts for leaders of all stripes, including civilians like you and me. Everyone, bring him out. Give a round of applause. Let's welcome a hero, Jocko Willink. All right, Jocko. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me out. Appreciate it.
Our theme for the discussion today is one of the guiding tenets of your life. It happens to be the name of your new book out October 17th, Discipline Equals Freedom, a field guide. So discipline equals freedom. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think the freedom part is pretty easy for everyone to understand. I think that everybody wants freedom in all the various aspects of their life, whether it's financial freedom. Those are the two examples I bring up all the time are financial freedom. Of course, everyone wants financial freedom. Everyone wants to have more free time. Those are two really easy examples to understand. And if you want to have financial freedom, well, then how are you going to get there? The answer is you have to have financial discipline. And same thing with more free time. If you want to have more free time, then you have to have a more disciplined time management schedule. And you have to have discipline in your life to say no to the things that aren't actually moving you towards whatever goals you have. So, you have to have the discipline to not click the next YouTube video that springs up when you get done watching one dumb video that you shouldn't have watched, and then it presents you with 6 more. Don't click on those. Go and do something else and do something productive.
It's counterintuitive in a way. So it almost seems like something that only someone who has lived that way can testify to.
Well, yeah, it is definitely counterintuitive because, one of the things you were just talking about is sleeping in the morning, right? It seems like sleeping in the morning is a form of freedom because, hey, I don't have to do anything. I'm just going to sleep in. But the reality is when you sleep in, now you don't get things done. And now those things that you were supposed to do aren't done. And now the next day you have to wake up early and get them done, not because you want to, but because you have to. So you've become a slave to the fact that you didn't have discipline. So if you actually want to have freedom in your life, you have to implement discipline on yourself.
Before we get too far away from the theme, tell us about the book. It's a field guide.
Yeah, it's Discipline Equals Freedom Field Manual.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. You'll be punished later. And so what it is honestly, there's not. I've never seen a book like this. It's written in a way that's not normal prose writing. It's broken down into sections, 2 major sections. One of them is called thought, and the other one is called action. And so the thought section is kind of the things that I think about and the reasons and the kind of the why I am the way I am. And then the actions are the actual things that I do in my life, from workouts to what I eat, to how I sleep, to how I recover from injuries, to how I actually manage my day and train. So that's the way it's broken up. And like I said, it's different from any book that I've ever seen. So it'll be interesting what the public thinks of it. We'll find out shortly.
So
Possibly.
I know you heard the woos and the oorahs. There are some people here who know you. For anyone who doesn't, let's talk about your background a little bit. What drove you to enlist in the SEALs as a teenager?
You know, I was one of those kids that I was running around the woods, taking every stick I could find and pretending it was a machine gun. And at some point, you know, probably around the age of 7 or 8, I realized that you could actually go and have a job where they'd give you a real machine gun. And I said to myself, I can get paid for this. So eventually figured out what the SEAL teams were. I liked being in the water, and the SEAL teams were obviously the maritime component of special operations, and so it seemed like the place to go, and that's where I ended up. It's
a major commitment for anyone, but as an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old, and this is when people make this commitment, do they have any idea what's really in store for them? Did you?
I honestly thought I would be dead in 5 years once I got in there. That's literally what I thought. I thought SEALs were just all over the world fighting in all these wars, and I was going to go and do that too, and I was ready to rock and roll.
So you've told me before that one of your favorite things about being a SEAL was the training, when you were going through it yourself, and the physical and tactical work that goes into becoming a SEAL. What was it that you loved about that so much?
Well, you know, a lot of times when people think of the training in the SEAL teams, they think of the training that you see on TV, which is, you know, the guys carrying the boats on their head and carrying the logs around, and that's what a lot of people talk about. But that actually is just the beginning of your career. And when you're in the SEAL teams, no one actually talks about that, and no one actually cares, because all of us have been through it. And you don't actually learn anything about being a SEAL in that initial phase of training. And so, yeah, you go through that training, a bunch of people quit, that's cool. But what I really liked about it was the tactics of when you're actually a commando and you're maneuvering elements on the battlefield and you're closing with and destroying the enemy, or you're training to be able to do that. That's a fantastic job. It's fun, it changes all the time, it's dynamic, and yeah, it's really hard to find a replacement for that in the civilian sector.
You learned a lot of these guiding principles that have shaped your life ever since as an 18 or 19-year-old. Did you need them after your, upbringing, your teenage years? Were you reckless or unruly? Did you need the discipline?
Yes, one could say I was fairly unruly as a kid. Yeah, I was a little bit of a maniac of a kid. And that's one thing that was great about the military for me, was it's a clean slate, number one. And then they give you very specific, okay, this is what you need to do to succeed. And so you show up a SEAL team and they say, you got to learn about this radio, and here's what you need to know about it. And if you know that, you're going to be successful in that department. And here's what you got to know about this weapon. And if you learn that, then you'll be successful. And that's a great base to start from. And then eventually, what you really learn in the SEAL teams is that what you have to do is you have to be able to think. You have to be able to problem solve, and you have to be able to look at complex problems, simplify them, and then implement solutions to them. And that's what comes a little later once you have that base. But it's a little bit different from what people think, because a lot of times people think that the military everything is super rigid and structured, and that all you're doing is getting orders from above you in the chain of command and you're executing those orders. Well, that's actually not true at all. And what you're really doing in the military is you're looking at complex problems on the battlefield, and you're coming up with a solution with your team on how to get those problems solved. And that's why I think that part of the military, even though it's not well known, it does translate great into the civilian sector, because this is what business people, and now obviously I work with businesses all the time, and that's what the businesses are doing. They're looking at these problems that they have in whatever industry they're in, and they're trying to find out solutions so they can execute them quickly and efficiently.
But by the way, it is hard, if anyone has any doubts about that. And there were, as you mentioned, people would quit. And you've told me before that was one of your favorite things of going through the training, is seeing people who didn't have it in them to keep going. Why did that motivate you, or why did you like that?
Mainly it was just really funny. So you'd get these guys that were, a lot of the guys that would quit were guys that were running around thinking that they were super tough and acting like they were super tough. And, that's just not the case always. And so it was really interesting, I guess, to see people break down, and you'd see someone that was acting like a real tough guy, and after they've been through, a few days without sleep and a bunch of hard exercises, all of a sudden they're ringing the bell. And me, I was never a great athlete. I was never a superstar at any sport, but I wasn't going to quit. And so I guess that's why I had a little inner satisfaction watching guys that would just give up. It's kind of sad in some ways too.
In a way, you just, as you describe it, it sounds like authenticity and being able to show or express what you don't know, or maybe some small form of weakness, and I have to get better. An acknowledgement that you have to get better can keep you going and keep you from breaking.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to be humble. And when you show up in the SEAL teams, and when I showed up with the SEAL teams as a new guy, like I said, even though I'd been through this tough training, you better be humble when you show up at the SEAL teams, because you don't know anything. And if you think you know something, you find out really quickly that you don't. And so it's actually easy, because if you're humble and you have an open mind and you're willing to listen, the guys are willing to teach you. And it's fundamental things that you can learn pretty quickly. But anybody that comes in that's arrogant, that thinks they know everything, they're going to have problems. And again, that's the same thing you see in the business world. When we work with companies where the company that is actually asking us to come in, and maybe the CEO is saying, hey, we want you to come and help us, that company, they're already doing well. They're already being successful, and their attitude is, hey, we need help, we want to get better, we want to be more successful. And those companies, they ramp up really quickly, and we have a great time working with them. Sometimes we work with companies where, let's say, we get brought in by the board, brings us in because the company's not doing well. Well, right off the bat, the company's not doing well, and they don't think they need any help. And so it's the opposite effect. They're saying, well, we don't need any help. We don't need you guys here. And the fact of the matter is they need us more than the other folks do. But the reason that they need help is the reason we're there in the first place. It's the reason they're not doing well, because they're not looking at themselves every day humbly and saying, what can we do better? How can we improve? How can we adjust right now and turn our game around or improve our game so that we can get better in the market?
You've written before, and I know talked about on your podcast, just humility as a vital trait of any leader. In the SEALs, if you're not humble, it could get you and your team killed. How does that work exactly? Is it about closing yourself off from ideas from other people?
That's definitely one of them. If you and I are working together and I'm the boss and I have a big ego and I think I'm better than you, and you come to me with an idea, I immediately shut you out. Well, what if your plan was a better plan? Or what if you had some piece of knowledge that made sense for a particular operation, but my ego is too big to listen to you? Well, now we go out and we put lives at risk and possibly lose lives because my ego is too big. Same thing you could say about the enemy, right? If I don't think the enemy is any good, all the enemy's no good, they don't train hard, and they're not prepared for the big, tough SEALs. Well, if you have that attitude, guess what? Maybe those guys are training harder. And if you start cutting corners in your training, you're going to get caught. And obviously, it's the same thing in the business world. When a company's doing well, if the company stays humble while they're doing well, they're still looking for how they can improve. They're still looking for things that they can do better. And they will stay on top. But the minute a company says, that's right, we're the best, and no one else even stands a chance, well, guess what? Those people down there on the bottom, they're hungry, and they're going to come and get them.
So you didn't start out as a leader. You worked your way up through the ranks, and you learned from people and experiences. Who or what shaped you?
Well, I was really lucky. Again, it's a great environment to grow up in. From a kid, basically, seeing and being in SEAL platoons with varied types of leadership. And I was very lucky that I saw really outstanding leaders, and I saw some leaders that weren't outstanding at all, far from it.
And you can learn from both.
And I learned from both, and even as a young kid, I wouldn't put it together 100%, but I'd say, man, that guy does something that makes us all want to do a good job for him. I want to act like that guy. And this guy over here, he makes us all mad, and we don't even want to come to work and work for him. I'm not going to act like him. And eventually, I kind of figured out what those traits were that they had, and actually humility being one of the most important ones that I noticed with the people we wanted to work for and I wanted to do a good job for. Those guys are the most humble people. And ironically, always the most experienced too. So the most experienced people would be the most humble, and the least experienced people would be the least humble and be the most imposing of how they wanted to do things, which is not a good way to lead.
What are some of the experiences that shaped the leadership philosophies you had developed?
Well, it was my whole career, but really the solidification of what I talk about now and what I wrote about with my brother Leif Babin, who's another SEAL that served with me in the Battle of Ramadi. What we talk about now is those lessons that we learned throughout our career that were solidified in the Battle of Ramadi and certified, battle-tested, and really, I say it all the time, combat is the harshest of teachers, and it teaches lessons that you're not going to forget, and that's true. And so the lessons that we brought home from Ramadi, it's the same thing that I taught when I was teaching the young SEAL officers how to lead on the battlefield is literally the exact same thing that's in the book Extreme Ownership, and it's the same thing we teach to companies when we're out working with them.
So let's talk about the ways that discipline governs your life today. You're obviously in incredible physical shape. You have a strict diet and exercise regimens that you stick to. What are some other musts for you on a daily basis to make sure that you're getting the most out of yourself?
Fundamentally, and this is so easy and so hard. People say, how can I get discipline in my life? And I tell them, step number one is wake up early. And I know people don't want to do it. It's harsh. I know that your alarm clock is, your most hated object in your bedroom. I get that. But here's the deal with getting up early in the morning. When you get up early in the morning, if you can get up before the rest of the world is awake, right? Before the enemy's awake, before the rest of the world is awake, you can get so much done. You're so much more productive without your phone going off, without people sending you emails and texting you or calling you. And you wake up in the morning, there's just quiet, and you can get things done. And you should do things, and I do things in the morning that I know they're a priority for my life, but maybe they're not a priority for that day. Right? So, like for instance, working out, you got to work out every day. You got to stay in shape. If you want to, if you don't stay in shape, you die, right? So you got to stay in shape. But working out might not be a priority for every single day because you've got things going on in your business world and with your family and all that. So guess what? It's a priority for my life. So I do it in the morning before my day even starts. So I can still handle the priorities for the day, but I got my workout done. So long term, I look up in a year and I'm not out of shape and breathing hard when I go up in the stairs because I maintain that discipline on a daily basis. So I think getting up early, I think doing some kind of exercise every day, I don't care what it is. You just have to do something. You have to do something physical. That's scientifically proven with not only bro science, but also real science that waking up early or that doing physical exercise every day, it tunes your mind, it puts more oxygen in your blood, in your brain. It is absolutely makes you think more clearly. So waking up early, working out every day, if you start with those two kind of cornerstones, and then the other thing is, figure out what you're going to do during the day. Don't go to bed without a plan of how you're going to handle the next day.
Your day is very structured. I know you write at the same time every day. You have a schedule.
Yeah, I have a schedule. And I execute the schedule, and that's what you need to do. Now, you actually said that my time is very structured, and it's actually a little bit not true. Parts of my day are very structured. Parts of my day are very disciplined, which gives me freedom in other parts of the day. And as a matter of fact, sometimes people will get, okay, I'm gonna run a disciplined time management schedule. So they schedule every single minute of the day, and I don't recommend that. Just like I wouldn't recommend conducting a SEAL operation where your timeline is so tight that there's no room for error, because that's not a possibility. You're going to have errors, things are going to go wrong, vehicles are going to break, boats are going to break, people are going to get lost, you're going to take a wrong turn, and so you're going to need extra time. And it's the same thing with your day. If you schedule, 16 hours of your day, you're not going to hit all your targets. But if you look at your work day and you've got an 8-hour work day where you're going to be in your office, and you schedule 4 or 5 of those hours, and you have 3 hours that you're going to fill in, and you're going to put important things into those as they come up, that is a much better way to be successful with running a time management on your life. And so I only schedule hardcore like 4 hours a day. The other hours, I'm picking up, I'm getting phone calls, I'm adapting and maneuvering on other things that need to be executed on. But what is important? Those 4 hours, they get done. They get done. And that's the difference between finishing writing a book and not finishing writing a book. Because, you know, when I write a book, I write 1,000 words a day. It takes me about an hour. That's what I do. I write 1,000 words a day. And in 30 days, you got 30,000 words. And in 60 days, you got 60,000 words. And in 90 days, you got 90,000 words, and that's a book. That's 3 months. And it took you an hour a day. And that's exactly what I did with the books that I've written. And it's the same thing with physical fitness. You don't get in amazing shape in you know, this short amount of time. But you get in amazing shape in a short amount of time, day after day after day after day. And that's where discipline comes in on both those subjects.
Waking up thing is pretty unpopular.
Yeah, no one likes that. That's okay. Keep sleeping in. That's fine.
You wake up earlier, you have to go to bed earlier. There are fun things that happen at 11.
Yeah, and that is true. And I guess I'm genetically what's called a short sleeper, and people have sent me all these articles about it because I don't sleep a lot. And I'm not advocating because it's unhealthy to not sleep enough, you know, and if you need 8 hours, go to bed earlier. But, you know, and I'm not saying you need to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, but I am saying this. You know when you are guilty of wasting time and laying in bed and you're being lazy. You know it. Whether that was 7 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning, you know it. And the other thing that we do is, if you want to wake up early in the morning, go to bed earlier. Well, that's real simple to say, but it's hard to do. It's hard to do, number one, when you're looking at your phone. It's hard to do when you're staring at your computer screen. It's hard to do when you're watching TV. Those things are meant, they're designed to make you keep looking at them. And so you do. So what you need to do is turn those things off and try and go to bed. Now, the first night, you're going to have a hard time going to sleep. What you do is the next morning, you wake up early anyways. That first night, you only got 5 hours worth of sleep, and now you're tired throughout the day. Good. Because then when you get to bed that night, you will turn off that computer, and you'll be able to go to bed earlier like you wanted to. So you have to start the cycle of waking up early by waking up early. You can't start the cycle by going to sleep early. See, now they're clapping about it. I like it. We're making progress.
You've turned them. You are a family man, too. Does discipline play a role in making sure that you are being everything that you need to be for your wife and kids?
Well, again, you have to carve out time for your family. And you have to, you know, another huge thing I talk about is balance, right? You have to have balance. And if you get out of balance in one direction or the other, and the classic example, because I'll have some people that say, you know, I'm just not spending enough time with my family and I'm working too much, and so I'm just going to focus on my family. Okay, well, let's follow that to the end. What happens is you focus on your family, and now you're not performing well at your job, and now maybe you're not getting promoted and you're not making more money, or maybe you're even getting fired, or you're not doing as well financially, so you can't provide the financial security for your family, which is actually going to cause more stress and will impact negatively your family. So if you focus too much on your family, you're actually doing them a disservice. And I know that's hard to understand. The same thing in the other direction. Hey, I'm going to take care of my family. My family's my number one priority, so I got to get them financially secured. So I'm going to focus on my work and focus on my work and focus on my work. And we know what happens there. So what you have to do is balance. And if you get drawn too much to where you're working all the time and you disregard your family, you're going to lose your family. And then if you go the other direction, you're focused on your job too much, or you focus on your family too much, you're going to lose your job. And by the way, you're going to end up losing your family anyways. So you've got to find the balance. You've got to look at that every single day. You've got to know when to shut off your phone. And, you know, that's a hard one for all of us because we're all expecting the big call to come in. Of course it's going to come during dinner with my family, so I have to look at my phone right now. No. There's no one that's calling you that you need to talk to in the next 45 minutes while you're sitting with your family. It's not going to happen. Go recharge your phone.
Our time is running short here, so I want to see if you can give people a sensory perspective of what it's like to live with this much discipline, to be structured, to get up early. to work your ass off in between? What does it feel like? What does it taste, smell, sound like to have this kind of discipline?
Tastes like steak, number one. I'll tell a quick story. This is a little bit of a wake-up call, and I was on social media, and I posted a picture of like my morning, right? A couple pictures of my morning, and I like worked out in the morning, and then I went surfing, and I think I trained jiu-jitsu, and I posted these pictures, right? And I said, hey, cool, good morning, or something like that. And I was reading some of the replies, and someone wrote, must be nice. And I was like, dang, that because, I didn't have a lot of money growing up. And I was in the military for 20 years. You don't have a lot of money growing up. You're not running around doing whatever you want. And I thought to myself, I'm kind of a jerk. Because here I am posting these pictures. I'm working out in the morning, and I'm going surfing, and I'm training jiu-jitsu with my friends. And there's some guy out there that's probably been up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't care what his job is, but he doesn't like it. I can tell that. And he's saying to me, must be nice. And I actually thought to myself, I'm going to back off from posting those kind of pictures, right? Because I'm rubbing it into someone's face, and I'm not intending to do that at all. And the afternoon or whatever came around, and I went and kind of looked at some of the responses again, and someone else had responded to that guy, and he wrote, discipline equals freedom. And I said to myself, yeah, that's what it is. And when you see me and I'm surfing, or I'm hanging out with my family, or I'm training jiu-jitsu, or I'm traveling and having a good time and enjoying my life, you're seeing the freedom part. And what you have to remember, and what everyone here should remember, everyone here wants to enjoy their life to the maximum. But if you want that kind of freedom, it all starts with the discipline. And I leave you with that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Jocko Willing.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.